This is where we saw for this vantage point, Greg Postel, and we brought you in because you were literally in this heat wave. Temperatures above 100, the heat index above 100, and not just for a day or two, for 5 days. And
yeah. I was going to say, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, where actually the conditions in Wisconsin were even worse than they were in northern Illinois.
Wow.
But it encompassed much of the upper Midwest.
And we need to add that this was a deadly heat wave. 600 people died in the Chicago area. 1,000 people across the entire area affected in the Midwest. These numbers are oppressive, but talk about how it made you feel, Greg.
Well, it was the most unbelievable experience. I mean, there was not a cloud in the sky. I don't know if you could see from those pictures going back to Chicago. During the afternoon hours, you normally think...
Part of that story, too, there was literally no cooling off. I mean, we talked to the National Weather Service Chicago, and they were saying those temps stayed near 90 degrees all
night long.
That's another part of it. That's right. There was no way to cool off. But look at this satellite picture. There's the upper Midwest. There's southern Wisconsin, Chicago being right about there. During the afternoon hours, there is not a hint of a cloud. And going back to some of the atmospheric profile temperatures, what we were looking at out here was basically a cap at about 800 meters above the ground. So basically almost as tall as the tall buildings in Chicago. That's where the atmosphere lid was. And it wasn't allowing any vertical development at all.
So that air was just all contained. I mean, just air that's stale and hot and... Ugh.
And that's part of the reason why the dew points were so high, because the boundary layer was so compressed, so the moisture wasn't spread out vertically over a deep layer. It was all contained in a couple thousand feet or less. And that's why we saw dew points in the 80s in southern Wisconsin with temperatures over 100, and dew points were 90 degrees in northern Wisconsin.
Right about that, about 90 degrees is like the record highest dew point.
Yeah, I think that was measured in Appleton, Wisconsin. Now there's, who knows how accurate that instrument was, but it was consistent with a lot of the other stations around it, which is pretty remarkable to see those dew points in the mid 80s at least that were widespread with temperatures over 100. It was something to behold, and no wonder why there were so many fatalities.
I mean, when you went outside, and first of all, did you go outside?
I did.
And what did it feel like?
Well, I went outside with a faculty member. I was at Wisconsin there, and we just like, let's see if we can hang out for 15 minutes eating lunch outside. Couldn't do it. It was just too much.
How long did you last?
About 10. And that was it. I was like, you know what? I'm starting to feel faint, so we got to go inside. And that's about it. So it was
Could you
awful.
breathe? Did it feel like there was no oxygen in the air?
Essentially, yeah. But I think the nighttime temperatures too. The following night, right? It was in the 90s for most of the evening. That was unbelievable.
And you were a young fella.
I was young.
20 years ago, but that was the most susceptible population is those folks that suffer the most, and that's what we do here. We're trying to convey that kind of people impact. What if something like that happened now? I mean, you have that many more air conditioners working, but you do have more awareness.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine it would be much different. Perhaps people would, back into their experiences, feel like, okay, now I know what to do. But there's really no way to condition your body for that kind of extreme.
Right. I mean, was it all people were talking about?
Yes. Yes. And we were actually running some thunderstorm models at UW, and the amount of instability in the atmosphere was so strong that the model that tried to break out a thunderstorm, actually create one, broke because the updrafts were too strong. So there were numerical models that if thunderstorms actually blew up over the area, were suggesting that they would be so strong that they would really, really overturn the atmosphere in a way we may have never seen.
It's amazing, the meteorology behind it, but the people impact too. Dr. Postel, appreciate your perspective.
All right, coming up next, we are going to go out to the tropics. We've got Michael Lowry standing by.